I act as if I just need to keep acquiring skills. And I have yet to reach a point of diminishing returns. I still am learning so much so quickly that I'm encouraged that I could accomplish enough to be remembered. Now keep in mind two things. One,
what's your greatest insecurity now, and what was it in the first 5 years of marriage and kind of business?
my greatest insecurity, I think, my greatest insecurity has been the same since I was like 12, and that's that I'm not smart enough to play with the big boys.
Who are the big boys?
Einstein, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Walt Disney, like the people who history remembers. And I actually don't know if I have the raw intellect to pull it off. Now, I think that I meet minimum requirements. And so I act as if I just need to keep acquiring skills. And I have yet to reach a point of diminishing returns. I still am learning so much so quickly that I'm encouraged that I could accomplish enough to be remembered. Now keep in mind two things. One, I don't think about legacy ever. So it's a North Star of seeing if I am going to be a fast pig or if I actually am going to be a racehorse. But knowing the only thing that I value in a conscious, active way, because clearly my desire to be smarter is tied to something. Maybe it's truly intrinsic, and maybe we all have this desire to be the best at something. Maybe that really is, like every single human will live a less joyful life unless there's some narrow band somewhere, something where they're the best at. I'm the best at picking weeds, drawing a straight line, pouring milk, whatever. But there's something, right, that like, have you ever seen the documentary The King of Kong?
No.
The guy who holds the world record for Donkey Kong. So
I gotta watch that.
right, but we all like
He found
pick
his
some,
thing.
some niche, and you go ultra hard, and it's like I'm the best at this. So maybe that's true. I don't know, but maybe it is. So,
But you don't want to be great at some niche. You want to be great at something grand.
Yes, but what I'm trying to separate here is I don't consciously value myself for intelligence. That it is proven to me that that is an emotionally dangerous game, because all too often I meet people that are smarter than me, and I'll even define smart: the ability to process raw data quickly. So I routinely meet people that can process raw data more quickly than me. There is some subconscious...
What type of raw data are we talking about? Like numbers, or...
If I said, Lewis, should we think more about the School of Greatness YouTube or the School of Greatness podcast? Now, I will come up with a profound answer to that if you let me think about it for 2 weeks. But there are other people that will come up with a profound answer in 7 seconds. And I find that just astonishing. And I'm so in awe of the ability to think quickly. And because I speak quickly, people think I think quickly, but I don't. And other than my wife, I don't think anybody believes me when I say that, but I assure you that is true. I just think a lot. And because I think a lot, I've solved problems in my own life, and some number of those problems that I have solved in my own life are useful to other people, but it's rumination. So
who are the 5 icons that you look up to the most, whether alive or dead? That
can I just multiply Elon Musk by 2 and Walt Disney by 3? It's like those two to me tower over everything. But really the people that I just listed: Walt Disney, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Einstein. But even I'll pull him off because while I find that kind of intellect very powerful, there's nothing in my life that even hints at that. I've never sort of tasted that kind of view on the world. Whereas the other guys, I feel like I get them, though I do not compete with them.
Right.
I get them. Steve Jobs, if I didn't already say that. Like, that's an area I can picture him. Spielberg. That to round out, I think that's 5. If I could mash them all into my brain, I would be a very happy man. A very happy man.
No, but some of those people weren't I mean, I think of Elon, sure, okay, Steve Jobs maybe, but was Walt Disney the smartest? Or the most creative?
So this is where it gets to separating the...
Wasn't he like an average drawer or something?
Well, he was
I mean, I'm sure he was
fired
good,
from a job at a newspaper for not being creative enough. But that's one of those, like, early, sort of who you are early, I don't get too much in a twist about because it was the fact that he spent some ungodly number of hours creating animation in his garage, literally, that just put him ahead of other people. So, I mean, if you really want to talk about success, success is a large amount of discipline and timing. And so he had both. He was working in a garage when there was no money to be made, and everybody said, what are you doing? All animation's played out. Well, animation's dead, baby, it's dead. And he just loved it enough that he was there and ready for that second wave of success.
Timing.
It's exactly what happened with Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk was huge, and then skateboarding died. But he loved it. And so even when it was just like backyard skateboard competitions, he just kept going and going and going and going and
For
going.
no money.
For no money whatsoever, no prestige, nothing. And then it has this resurgence in the 90s, and he's the only one that anybody knows because everybody gave up. And so now it becomes Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and boom, he's like the biggest name by a factor of 100. So that was the same thing with Walt Disney. He didn't need to be the smartest. He needed to be the one that put in all the time when everybody else gave up, and then the world had to meet him. They almost went out of business during World War II. And Roy Disney sort of keeps them afloat, and they do like sort of propaganda films and stuff, and then they come out of it as like the only survivors. And because he had been so passionate and working so hard, and he had that discipline and that work ethic of what he was doing in the garage to innovate. So you have this guy that wants to innovate, so he's doing things other people aren't doing at a time where not only were there no other innovators, everybody else had fallen by the wayside and given up because there was no money, and now he was the best of the best, and he had that discipline and the work ethic, and then the timing met him. And it's just, you get these. So, dude, I will just say this to everybody watching, because this will be a time capsule in 5 years. I mapped something out 7 years ago that is now coming to fruition. Lewis, I promise you, I have a vision. People can go watch it right now. I mapped it out. It's called, if you in YouTube type Tom Bilyeu and master plan, I laid the whole thing out.
Yeah.
And I am executing against it every single day. And
a 7-year plan?
No. It just happened to be 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was the first time I said out loud, this is what I'm doing. So then, 3 years ago, I said, we need to record this. So 4 years into it, I said, I want to plant a flag so it's not people having to believe, no, I really did have this master plan.
Yeah.
That I have it and people can watch me execute it and see if I pull it off. Because I think I know where the puck is going to be, and that there's something happening right now in media that's opening up a moment of tremendous timing that I'm aimed precisely to be in the middle of that timing so that I can create another gigantic successful company. This one will take longer because I have to have built something up to be ready to take advantage of that opportunity that's coming. In a way that, like, when you're selling something people can eat, it's not the same problem. Although we did have our own lucky timing there.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, you've got the work ethic and the discipline like Disney. He had timing.
He had timing.
Because it could have been no one cared. So it's like he wasn't more brilliant. It seems like he was brilliant, but he wasn't more brilliant. He was dedicated in a craft that had timing, and
that's why I don't know if my obsession with, because you just asked what my insecurity was.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Whether it makes any sense or not is a totally separate debate.
Because you don't need to be smart to be iconic.
It is entirely possible that I meet minimum requirements to become an icon, yes. I don't know yet.
I don't even think you need minimum requirements. You don't need that.
You do, my friend. We both know.
In terms of intelligence.
Yes. I don't want that to be true, but it is true. The US military has run the experiment. They said if you have a below 84 IQ, I think it is, that they would rather just not have you because even peeling potatoes, you'll create more chaos.
I don't even know if my IQ is. I don't even think my IQ is that high.
It's not 84.
I swear.
Lewis, I promise you.
I have no idea.
No. I promise you. No matter how much you may struggle with reading or whatever, your IQ is well above that. And then on top of that, like you're sort of dancing around, there are other things other than your ability to process raw data quickly, okay,
yes.
which will sort of round to IQ. There are things that are just as important, maybe more important than IQ. I heard this real story once, and I want to do a fictionalized version of this, that at one point in the US, the guy with the highest IQ in the world lived in the US, and he was working as a bouncer in a bar and had done nothing with his life.
What?
Now imagine that. A guy who, if I remember the numbers correctly, Einstein is 160, and this guy was like 220.
Shut up.
So think about that. The average in the US is like 115, I think. So if 115 is normal, and then Einstein is 160. There's a bigger gap between Einstein and this guy than Einstein and your average guy. And the guy was a bouncer at a bar. Because if you don't meet minimum requirements in sort of all the areas, social skills, interpersonal skills, the ability to manage your own emotions, right? Maybe this guy had suffered trauma and he just could not get himself to a place where he could engage or wanted to engage. You know, so it's like, I get it. I somehow, at some point in my life, chose subconsciously to value intelligence. I'm in awe of it when I see it. I wish I had more of it. I don't cry myself to sleep tonight, at night about it. But if there was a button in front of me that said you could be the smartest person in the world, the only thing that makes me hesitate is would I still be able to enjoy my time with my wife? And because I used to say yes, I would hit that button. And then Lisa was like, I know this is make-believe, but if I could put a request that you hesitate before hitting it, because she said, would we still relate to each other? And I was like, I actually don't know. So if I knew that I would still relate to my wife, I would pound the life out of that button.
So why is this the biggest insecurity?
Because
you're doing pretty well for yourself.
I really feel like I don't spend a lot of time in insecurity, but I'm trying to give you a real answer.
Yeah.
So when I think about things that still do like, oh, that sucks, it's when I see, like when I look at Elon Musk, I am not equal parts because I'm more inspired than I am crestfallen that I just don't have that ability to process data like that. That's astonishing. Like when you see what he's done, I'm going all out to build the next Disney. And I think I might pull it off. But he's building a company to take people to Mars while building the most dynamic car company on the planet.
And an underground tunnel company, right?
And and Solar City. It's like Hyperloop he just had an idea, and so he published what multiple companies are now using to build. He gave away his patents. I mean, it's insanity. The guy is the chief engineer of SpaceX. He taught himself rocket science. Dude, he taught himself. He got books and taught himself rocket science. That's insane. So that to me is, I choose to let it be awe-inspiring, even if I could only ever be a fast pig. And who knows, I'm not running the experiment. But I think in terms of there are some areas where you get disproportionate rewards on your time. If it has to do with verbal or emotional abilities, I get disproportionate return. Me and somebody else could read the same books, and I'm just gonna walk away with more. I could give the same number of speeches as somebody else, and I'm just gonna be a little bit better than they are. So that's an area where I've really poured myself into.
If you could hit a button right now that would say you are one of the smartest people at, what did you say? Something with data?
The ability to process raw data.
Processing data?
Yeah.
Be the smartest or one of the smartest in the world right now, or guaranteed to be the same level of intelligence you are for the rest of your life, or incrementally better with the amount of process you take, and be bigger than Disney. Guaranteed. That's
so easy. Bigger than Disney. Nothing brings me more joy than storytelling. Nothing.
So why obsess over the well, maybe
like I said, I don't know. I'm not sure that it's smart. I don't know that it's a good use of my cycles. But you're so good at asking like that really pointed question, and it's tempting to dodge, right? And just be like, give you some BS answer. The truth is, for whatever weird reason that I have not been held back enough by to worry about, the thing that I worry about in my life, at least some small amount, is my intelligence. So it's probably stemmed from growing up. I was just always around. Maybe it's pure luck. Maybe if I'd grown up anywhere else, I would have been the smartest kid. But I was in a group of friends where I was not the smartest. And so I became the funniest. And that has served me very well.
And you became the hardest working. And you became...
I haven't tracked enough of them to know. I was not then, I will assure you of that. Now, whether I'm the hardest working of all of us now, but we're a bit of a Stephen King bunch where everybody's scattered to the wind and we have not stayed in contact. But I do think like that line in Stephen King that you never have friends like you had when you were 12, that is true. Like the friends that I had at the age of 12 was like a magic Stephen King novel. And but unfortunately, I have not stayed in contact except for one of them, which is a whole thing unto itself. He's a fucking fascinating guy.
Wow.
But anyway, they were smarter than me, many of them.
Don't you want to not be the smartest person in the room?
Yeah. You'll end up in a death loop because I think it's dumb. I should not be obsessed about wanting to be smarter, but I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't. Like it is an area where Yeah, it would be cool. I won't lie.
Right.
But I know how to emotionally center myself. I know how to be beyond grateful for the talents that I do have. I am able to generate an extraordinary amount of joy with the talent and intelligence. Like if 50% is hardwired and then the other 50% is making the most of that, I am really having a ball, making the most of what I was given. So I'm good.
Yeah.
But am I insecure? Yes. Am I paralyzed by insecurity? No. Do I invest in that insecurity? No. I don't think it makes any sense to wallow in like, oh, I should be smarter. You know what I mean? Like I'm not stuck there.
Yeah.
But that's the honest answer to a very pointed
That's
question.
interesting.
When you launched Quest, there were 1,600 other protein bar companies that launched in 2010.
Flavors or companies, yeah.
Flavors or companies.
Yep.
What gave you the audacious mindset to think that you could compete against all those, plus the 10, 20 years of other nutrition companies out there and beat them?
Yeah, it's...
Without having any experience in this.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a phrase that I play in my own head that I know when I say out loud, 50% of people love it and 50% of people hate me for it, but it's true. So, hey, here we go. I have the arrogance of belief. Mm-hmm. I believe in myself. Now, I believe in one thing about me. I am not the smartest guy. I got a 990 on my SATs. I took it twice. That's my combined score.
Better than me.
That's bad for both of us. I always joke with people, a monkey smearing feces on the test could score higher than I did. Like it's literally terrible.
Yeah.
But I always believed that I could do whatever I set my mind to, right? So that's the only credit I will give myself is when other people break and give up and stop, I just don't, right? And it comes down to the story you tell yourself about yourself. And that's the story I tell myself. I was just this last weekend, I was at an entrepreneurial organization and they brought a world-class mountain biker in and said, hey, anybody that wants to go for a ride with her, go. And I thought, okay, I'll go and because she's saying we can do a beginner course or whatever. And I thought, oh, it's perfect. I'll jump on the bike and go. I've never been on a mountain bike before ever in my life. I haven't been on a bike of any kind probably in 15 years. So that was probably stupid. And we're in, Sun Valley, Idaho. So it's not exactly flat land. And we go mountain biking and I'm dying. I'm just done. It's at like 6,000 feet, first of all. So I cannot catch my breath. And I keep stopping and everyone's like, oh, it's okay, man. Like, go ahead and turn back. It's all good. It's all good. And I'm like, I don't think you know the story I tell myself. Like, there's no universe in which I stop. So I keep going. Finally, they've done the loop, right? Some people have turned back, whatever. Yeah. They've done the loop and now they're coming back and they're passing me. I'm still headed out. And they're like, you need to turn around. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to turn around. And they said, okay, but then we're no longer responsible for you. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, it is what it is, man. I appreciate that. No worries. I'm a big boy. Like, go. And I just kept going. And I must have come in an hour and 20 minutes or something after everybody else. But I finished. And that meant so much to me. I was like, I'm going to ignore the fact I got my ass handed to me and I came in dead last.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be proud that I didn't quit.
Interesting. Did you say arrogance of belief? Is that what you said?
The arrogance of belief.
It's interesting. When I study champion athletes, there's... one thing that they have over everyone else, one of two things, and it's a belief in themselves or their beliefs in something higher, giving them that strength, courage, athleticism. And whenever I listen to champions on interviews after the Super Bowl, whatever it may be, the first thing they say is, how do you feel? That the broadcasters are going to say, I want to say, thanks to God who gives me all the glory, who gives me all my strength, my courage, everything. I believe 100% in him and his power and in that power. Or the other athlete is like, I believe in myself so much. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. I believe I will do whatever it takes. I believe that I can go through any adversity. It's that belief, that arrogance of belief, either way, that I believe makes people great or not great.
Yeah.
And even if you're, the other person may have a lot of belief as well, and sometimes it just doesn't fall your way. Tom Brady has lost a number of Super Bowls, has also won a number of them. But it's getting to that opportunity, I think. You got to have that belief either way. So that's a good point right there. What makes you guys different than everyone else?
There's really two things. One, the product is just different. So we were the first ones. In fact, I never really answered your question. So there's 1,600 bars products into a declining market. Everyone told us we were crazy, but there was nothing in the market that we would eat. So we knew there was at least a market of 3.
Too much stuff in it, too much chemicals,
and we just thought, look, man, if we can deliver this product that's real, people will respond, and and wanting to build a company of value so that people could love it in 2 ways. So one was just we created a better product, and then 2, we said right from the beginning, there's 2 things that we export: our product and our philosophy, and that made us weird right out of the gate. And we said, look,
but different is good.
Yeah, right. And this was really different in a positive way, because we wanted to own up this. There's 2 things going on with the company. There's the ability to make this superior product and get it out into the market and all that. And then there's the mentality that we have that has allowed us to do this. And we want to share that mentality with other people. And we have a similar global desire by exporting that mentality, which is, we shorthand it to Elon Musk, but I mean, the next Bill Gates, people doing big things, world-changing things, right? We want to find those people. We want to give them the arrogance of belief in themselves, or a less controversial way of saying, we want to give people the confidence of belief.
Exactly.
So that they can be confident, that they can believe in themselves enough to take a risk, and quite frankly, survive failing. And a lot of people, I think, get eaten up by failure, which is not useful. So helping people develop a mentality that inoculates them from the pain of failing, from the pain of not being chosen, all those things that really knock people back. We want to export that philosophy. And that certainly plays well for the brand, because the brand was always meant to be empowering, right? We had to make a decision early on. Is a Quest bar what you give to somebody who has 6-pack abs and you say, well done, son, you get to eat one of these? So is it a trophy, or is it a catalyst for change? Hey, I see somebody, this guy, this gal, they're struggling, and I want to give them an inclusive community. I want to give them a product that feels good, that they can celebrate with, that they can reconnect to joy. And that's what we want to be. We don't want to be a trophy. I want to be a catalyst for change. So when you're already just in the mindset, we want to be a catalyst for change, and you're trying to put that out into the world in ways that, by the way, do not serve you from a financial standpoint in any way, shape, or form, it actually allows you to create an authentic connection with the consumer, and being real and really connecting with them, that does serve you from integrity of the brand.
Sure, yeah. You said 8.5 years of your life you feel like was taken from you.
I sold it cheaply.
I
won't allow myself to say it was taken from me.
You sold it cheaply.
I sold it cheaply.
I'm curious, what were the biggest lessons you learned about yourself in those 8.5 years that you apply now to your business? And also, do you feel like you would have such a big company and mission and purpose with Quest without those 8.5 years?
I definitely wouldn't. And is it the classic case of, I wouldn't change anything because it brought me to where I am? Sure. That's not an interesting mindset to me, right? Because I don't want to sit here and fumble for the next 8.5 years. I want to be deadly efficient. So that is it's a better framing device for me to say that was time sold cheaply, to remind me not to make the same mistakes
again.
But I have reframed it in my mind as well, and I understand I learned very powerful lessons. So what lessons did I learn? I learned that you really have to set your mind to acquiring a certain set of skills with all the efficiency in the world, that you can acquire those skills, first of all, that anything is possible as long as you set your mind to it. And that and this is probably the most important lesson that I learned, that what is working against you is your own mind. Now, if you stop there, you're in trouble, because it's not specific. So we all have insecurities that get triggered, and then we start acting foolishly as a result of that trigger. Now, so we all have a superpower. I'm sure you've heard that before. We all have a superpower. Mine is the ability to understand my own emotions and drivers, even when they're petty and ugly. And I just admit to them. And I'm talking within seconds. Like if I have just a horrible, petty thought, feeling, driver, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this for a really stupid reason. And because I'm aware of it, I can't always stop it. So this is not like, yay me. I can't always stop it. But because I at least recognize it, I can then train it out of myself over time. Because it's like, okay, when you do that, it's because this person triggered that insecurity and you're dealing with it this way. And that also lets me then teach other people. So if you walked into a meeting at Quest it would be really weird because we're talking vulnerable, like we're being totally vulnerable with each other. We're being really honest about what insecurities are being triggered. And if somebody makes a weird face when somebody else says something, I'll just be like, you made a weird face. Let's talk about the weird face, because I know that weird face is because some insecurity is being triggered, right? And what happens when people's insecurity is triggered, they'll fight for a dumb idea just because it's theirs, right? And they don't want to feel stupid, so they want to win the argument. And the thing that I think I learned over the 8.5 years that a lot of people don't really understand, and if I could give this gift to people, it'd be very powerful for them, that everyone is going to build a massive ego. Everyone in this room right now, the three of us, we all have big egos. I promise you.
Yeah.
It's only a question of what did you build your ego around? Did you build it around something that's positive and empowering? Or did you build it around being perfect, something that's very fragile, something that you could never uphold, so you're going to end up fighting to protect your ego, to what may be essentially a really bad idea, but because it was your idea and it made you feel good, you're going to fight for it. Yeah. So I realized very early on, because I'm not as bright as my partners, and intelligence is not a predictor of success, or whatever, that's not a big thing for me, but I'm really not, just like on a raw IQ level, I'm not as bright as my partners. So they can process data much more quickly than I can. And in the beginning, it made me feel very inferior. And so that triggered an insecurity. And so I would fight for dumb ideas because they were mine. And sometimes I could actually convince them. And it was one day realizing I actually won that argument. And now I'm terrified because I've convinced them.
Not the right thing, or
not only what if, I know it's not. I know it's a worse idea, but I've just out-argued them, right? Like I've fatigued them. They no longer wanted to fight over it. So, and I thought, wow, that's really dumb, because if I'm goal-oriented, if my goal really is XYZ, right? I want to end metabolic disease. Then you're either moving towards that goal or you're not. And so having that realization made me go, I need to build my self-esteem around something that is at all times empowering. So rather than building my self-esteem around being right, which is what I've been doing up to that moment, and being right still feels good, right? Everybody loves it.
Feels great.
But there's a more powerful one, which is to identify the right answer faster than anyone else, which means you may have the right answer. And then I'm gonna be like, Lewis has the right answer. That idea is so badass. And then I'm going to get so hardcore behind your idea and be the driving energy behind it that people will
to
actually
everyone else.
Yeah. And the whole time I'm going to be screaming, this is Lewis's idea. Lewis is a genius. This man did it. But everyone is getting behind me because I'm running harder and faster than anyone else. And because I'm bringing so much energy to the right answer, it makes me feel good. Like I feel rad. I feel as rad as I would have if it actually had been my own idea.
Let's talk about self-awareness, because it sounds like you have a lot of self-awareness. How important is it for everyone to have self-awareness, and how do you cultivate that, understanding that skill set?
It absolutely is critical. I think it's probably the most important skill that you can develop. And here's how I train people to do it at Quest. So I'll give you one specific application. There's many, obviously, so this will be very, very specific. In interviewing, the first thing you need to do, you need to keep a 7-second journal. In the first 7 seconds of meeting somebody, you have a feeling, and that feeling usually emanates from your gut, right? You're either drawn to that person, you want to hang out, they make you feel uneasy, whatever. You probably don't understand why you like them, you may not understand why you don't like them, but you have a reaction, and it comes way too quickly for them to talk you out of it. So just take note. Then what I do is once I recognize, oh, I have a positive, or ooh, I have a negative feeling for this person, I then open my mind up. If I love them, I open my mind up to they may be terrible here. Or if I really don't like them, I open my mind up to they may be the best thing ever. And so I go through the rest of the interview simply remembering what the first 7 seconds told me. Then I get to spend, let's say, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes up to an hour with that person, just trying to find out who they are, revealing myself, getting them to reveal themselves. And through that, I will form a new opinion. And it may be the same as my first 7 seconds. It may be wildly different. And then if I hire them, I get to test, was I right? And which one was right? If I initially reacted poorly, but then ended up hiring them, was I right the first time or the second time? So you just over the repetition of going through I have an emotion that I don't understand, but I'm going to make mental note of it. And I actually tell people to write it down. Going through that process and then later identifying it, that becomes really, really useful because you can start to test the hypothesis. I feel this way and I think it's because of this. And then you see over time if it was or not.
And how many people do you stick around more than 6 months once you hire them?
Do I hang around?
How many people
stay at the company?
Stay at the company for more than 6 months? Or is it like a quick decision if you know in the first 30 days? Is it like a marker? where they either make it or they don't, and you're like, okay, it's probably not the best fit? How do you judge that?
That's actually something that I struggle with, because I would say we have a relatively high turnover rate. And the reason is we're a really, really particular flavor. And for people that have a growth mindset, you will not find a better place to work. Wow. But if you have a fixed mindset, we sound like lunatics, right? Like, imagine you walk in with a fixed mindset. You actually believe you're as smart as you're ever going to be, and that's that. Some people are born with more than others, and that's just the way it is. You think of yourself as a very bright, very intelligent person. Thank God, right? And to you, it's like height. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And you walk into a meeting and somebody makes a funny face, and I can tell they're shaking their head because there's some historical disagreement between these two. And I say, literally just today, by the way, this is a real example. I'm like, you're shaking your head because you believe you've told somebody something and they haven't listened, right? To somebody with a fixed mindset, that's like, this isn't a therapy session, dude. Like, what are you doing? But to me, knowing how people entrench themselves into bad behaviors that they can free themselves from, and that's all judged by efficiency, by the way. So it's not like frou-frou, Tom thinks this. It's, we have a goal, and I judge every behavior, every smile, frown, whatever, against, does it move us towards where we're going or away from where we're going? So, yeah, for the people that stay, they stay for a very long time. For the people that leave, they leave fast.
I believe that we can't achieve our goals without a great team. And it sounds like you're building a great team, but with everyone turning over quickly, how does that dynamic fit in with creating connection with people? If, their office mate right next to them is gone within a month, and they're being vulnerable and opening up and sharing and connecting and being honest and sticking to these 25 bullet points, these values, how does someone fully open up and express themselves and trust that they can, if they're going to leave and go do something else and be gone?
Yeah. So the way that we have it, I would say probably about, it's going to be north of 90% of the people that once they're in, they're in. So there's this ever building snowball of people that have been working together now for years.
Yeah.
So there's like a cultural lexicon. So the way that we refer to it is the island has voted you off. So it really becomes that collective of people who make up the core of the company are like, this guy he's not having fun. We call him clock punchers. He's a clock puncher. He's a 9-to-5er, right? He hasn't bought
invested into the brand.
Yeah, but not even that, because we don't think like that. Like, I don't want people, the dream to end metabolic disease is my dream. If you happen to share that dream, wow, that's fantastic. But if we're not serving something that's intimately personal for you, you shouldn't be here, right? And when someone is serving themselves, everything about them is different. They've got more ideas, more energy. They put more time into it with a bigger smile. They're just more energetic. So when people walk into Quest, the first thing they say, almost without exception, is, whoa, there's a real energy here. Because that's people, that's, 1,300 people that are there for their own selfish reasons, right? So while I say we have a high turnover, it's high by my standards, because I want everybody to have a growth mindset and to really fall in love. But I mean, how we compare to other companies, I don't know.
Sure. And are you accessible to everyone? Do you give your time, if anyone wants time with you, are you just like, let me clear my schedule? Do you have set hours where you say, I'm available to schedule time with me if you have any challenges or you want to talk about anything, or how does that work?
It's been evolving. So yes, if anyone says they want to see me, they will get to see me for sure. And they'll get to see me very, very quickly. The next 48 hours for sure. Cool. But I know the truth of being available is to go sit out in the middle and beckon people to you, because as much as I hate it, there's an intimidation factor to the position. So people think, oh, he's the president, he's the owner, like I can't go up to him. Absolutely hate that. And that holds them back, which means it actually holds my company back. So it's like, I would love nothing more than people to kick my door in and be like, you work for me. You know what I mean? Like that's when, okay, now I know you're here for selfish reasons, right?
What you need, how
you're trying to make something happen.
Yeah.
So I used to sit out in what we call the living. So if I'm awake and not in the gym, I'm at work. Monday through Friday, obviously. Right. So I'm in there really early and I stay really late. And I used to sit out in what we call the living room and just invite people to come and talk to me. And it was awesome. And I had this touch point and people could tell me what was going on. And I got to continue to push out the mindset and, let people see it from like 1,000 different angles, like how I would handle this problem or that problem or whatever.
Sure. Do you sit on the big beanbag now?
I don't anymore, but that's exactly the space I'm talking about. And what I found was, in fact, this was why I ended up starting Inside Quest, because it didn't scale. right? I could maybe touch 10 people at a time, but when you've got 1,300, that's not enough.
Crazy.
And I thought, we've got 1,300 now. Where are we going to be in 5 years? So we started thinking, okay, how can we make this scalable? And the answer was to do a show where I bring on people like you, and we get to go back and forth and really push each other and sort of challenge ideas and let people see that and engage in it as much as they want. And now that A, it lives forever, and B, they can come in and see it recorded in real time, and they get to ask you questions.
And ask you questions as well.
What is the strategy you've learned from all the people you've interviewed and your own just personal tests and experiments of soothing and kind of getting back to a place of heart rate slowing down, getting back to a rational state of mind, letting go of the hurt 12-year-old that's not smart or whatever it may be, that's hurt in that moment and reactive? What are those soothing techniques besides having a blankie when you're a child and sucking a thumb?
Well, so I'll get the mechanistic one out of the way. Meditation is big. That has been a lifesaver for me. That's helped me manage stress in very stressful situations. But the thing that maybe people haven't heard before is I always ask myself one question. So I have a goal. I know what my goal is. That's very, very important in my entire rubric. Everything that I say assumes that the person knows what their goal is. Big goal or the goal just in that moment. So let's say your goal is I want to feel good about myself. So getting back to center. Okay, I want to feel good about myself, but I just did something to embarrass myself, and it has real world consequences, right? It really was embarrassing, and it really will stick with me maybe for a year, maybe 10 years, maybe this is a thing that now is associated with me forever, right? It's out in the internet, whatever. So how am I going to recenter? I use one question. Will it serve me to feel badly about myself because of this? And if it does serve me, and by the way, sometimes it does, like you need that sting of like, I messed that thing up. I don't want to mess up like that again. And being upset by it, never more than 20% of your time, but in that 20%, leaning on what I call the dark side, to be like angry about it, be upset, hold yourself accountable, and not just let yourself off the hook and be like, yeah, you screwed that up. You weren't paying enough attention. Your skill set wasn't ready, whatever. But 9 or 8 times out of 10, I guess, the right answer is no, it's not going to serve me. And even if kicking my own ass served me for a little bit, it's not going to serve me for long. So I need to very rapidly transition into forgiveness, into just not focusing on it, letting it go, and knowing that. So I have a belief that I've consciously instilled in my life that I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goal. So even if it's true that I'm a moron, believing that isn't going to serve me. So I just go, okay, well, that's not going to serve me, so I need to at least believe I can get better. Oh, okay, I can get better, cool, then I'm just going to focus on that. And that simple reframe pulls me out of that, and it's a pattern interrupt, right? Using cognitive behavioral therapy language. I don't allow myself to death spiral about what a moron I am.
You know what's interesting? I probably spent 27, 28 years of my life, maybe 30, obsessing over being a moron internally, right? Internalizing like, God, stupid, you're an idiot, this, whatever it was, around a relationship or something in my business, something, I would obsess about it. And I think when I turned 30, I finally was like, well, that doesn't really serve me anymore. And I feel like a lot of people in the world continue to obsess about calling themselves something negative, that they're no good or a moron or, God, you're an idiot for doing this thing, and we obsess over it. Why do you think we obsess so much for decades of our lives until we die? Most people, it seems like.
You're having a biological experience. So one of the physics of being human, this is the actual structures of the brain are designed to do the following. It's designed to keep you alive long enough to have kids that have kids. That's it. Now, you trying to be the alpha in your tribe is actually very dangerous. You're going to have to put yourself out there, take risks, try to build alliances, all that. So that's why people are so afraid of making a mistake, public speaking, doing something that could get them ostracized. Now, in a modern context, it doesn't make sense anymore to have that fear, but the programming is there. Yeah. So also we have a negativity bias. So if you think of it as the sort of snake stick effect, you are better off assuming that a stick in the grass is actually a snake than you are to assume a snake in the grass is a stick. Because if a stick is just a stick, but you react like it's a snake, you look silly and people might chuckle. But if it's actually a snake and you react like it's a stick, you're dead.
Yeah.
So you're way better off skewing to the overreactive. Same with negative. You are way better off going, Lewis, you really embarrassed yourself. You never should have done that. You should have just kept your mouth shut.
Stay safe. Yeah.
Stay safe,
Protect
baby.
yourself.
Yes, because you are better off fitting in than you are sticking your head up.
Yeah.
Now, if you win the lottery and you become the alpha male and you get access to more females and you procreate, it's a risky strategy. But when it pays off at Genghis Khan, and it pays off, his impact can actually be measured in the gene pool. It's insane. But it's a dangerous strategy, man. So that's why you have all this like negativity bias. You're something like 5 or 7, I forget what the stat is, 7 times more likely to believe something negative than you are to believe something positive, because if it's positive, then it's just you didn't get ostracized, but you don't get a lot more out of it. Whereas if you really misstep and you're in danger of being put out of the group, you need to address it immediately and go into damage control.
Have you ever done anything where you felt like, oh, I really messed up?
I mess up daily.
But I mean like,
Daily.
oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have done that thing. Or I got too much negative comments than I normally get. And is there a moment you can think of that stands out where you felt like, I held on to this for a few days of beating myself up because I knew I needed to take accountability?
Are you asking about whether I hold on to something too long or whether I make mistakes? Where they're legitimate.
What was the mistake
mistakes?
that was a big one for you where you were like, okay, I had to not beat myself up, but like I had to hold myself accountable for a few days longer than I normally would to recorrect?
I don't have a quick answer to that.
Yeah.
Partly because I don't lash myself for mistakes and haven't for a very long time now. I make mistakes routinely. I've made huge mistakes with building culture.
Really?
Dude, you want to talk trial and error? Like trying to figure out like how to build a culture in a company was very, very difficult. When I used to mentor somebody, I would do this thing where I would say, they would come to me inevitably and say, hey, I want to be you in 10 years. And I would say, okay, then I'm going to start talking to you the way that I talk to myself. That was a mistake. Most people are not ready for that. And like finding a way to stair step them into that and sort of help them begin to process things that, I've had my entire life to earn my own respect, earn credibility with myself. So, and then also I could never understand, and Lisa really had to show me. She was like, when you speak, people don't hear Tom Bilyeu, the teammate. They hear Tom Bilyeu, the CEO. And it's like, she was like, some of your staff has only ever interacted with you when you're on camera. And so to you, it's like you have both the sort of, you're the boss, you pay their paycheck, and you're a celebrity. In a very micro way, trust me, I'm well aware of that. But like, that's the perception that they have. But because I don't think of myself like that, I don't feel that way internally, that I cannot think that, oh, when I say this thing and I'm a very forceful person, so now I'm saying it forcefully, but I don't want deference. I assume you're not giving me deference, but in reality, that person is hearing the CEO, this guy could fire me, and he's, now he's coming at me hard, which he did ask my permission to do because I came and said, but it didn't work. So I don't use that strategy anymore. Just a lot of little things like that where it seemed like I really was trying to do something amazing, but it was a terrible strategy.
Yeah. What would you say is the wrong way about getting into a business partnership with your married, as a married couple, and the right way to do it? What have you learned in the last 5 years that's really worked, and what has been like, man, maybe we shouldn't have done a business together if we would have went down this way?
Yeah. If your relationship isn't high functioning, if you don't have insane levels of emotional stability, a sense of longevity, you know that you're in this forever, and that you've shown over a certain period of time that we have the chops to solve disputes. That's the key. The second key is, what are the roles? Baby, I don't care who takes what role, but you better have some roles. So for instance, when Lisa and I created Impact Theory, we said to the lawyers, make this the ultimate divorce nightmare. Lawyers said, no, one of you should take 51%, trust me, everybody thinks that this is all gonna be sunshine and rainbows. And Lisa was like, yeah, absolutely, Tom should have 51% and I'll take 49. And I said, over my dead body.
Wow.
You are taking 50%, this is half your company. You have earned, over the life of our marriage, you've earned half of everything that we have. Like if my wife were cheated on me with an entire football team, I would still give her half because half of it is hers. Like she has earned that half. And becoming, a horrible wife does not negate that she earned her half. And so I would just close that chapter. I would give her half, never look back, and just go do my thing. And because I believe that to the core of my being, and I believe it for two reasons. One, she really has earned her half. And even if she hasn't, the only way to make sure that my marriage is my number one priority is to say to her, no, I trust you implicitly. If you're going to burn this business down, do it. Please don't mess up our marriage. But like, I don't care about the business like I care about you. And I want to be very clear, and I want my actions to show. It isn't like, oh, no, it doesn't matter. But you know what? I'll just put the 51 down, just to let you know. The lawyers are telling us. No. 50-50. But let's be very clear. I will try never, ever, ever to move forward without us agreeing. And you will convince me. Sometimes I will convince you. I am very open. And she knows me. I never argue for an idea just because it's mine. I know where the company's trying to go. I've built a skill set over multiple businesses in many, many years of being good, not perfect, but being good at knowing which movement is most likely to get us where we want to go. So, my beloved wife, about to be my business partner, if we ever find ourselves at an impasse, I can't convince you, you can't convince me, we've exhausted our ability to communicate, to move each other, we will every single time go with my idea. Now, if you're comfortable with that.
We're 50-50 though.
Correct, but we have roles.
Yes,
I am the CEO. I am the visionary.
Interesting.
She is an unimaginably good executor. And she has also amazing visionary ideas, just as I know how to execute. But when you look at the dominant trait, I am dominant when it comes to vision. She's dominant when it comes to execution. So if it's something around execution and I think she's crazy, we're going to go with her idea because I know she is the right person to listen to. But when we get to loggerheads on something where, let's say we were equal, like no one has more experience, no one has proven to be better at this thing, then ultimately I'll make that call. Now,
because that's your role.
That's my role. Mm-hmm. And again,
just like you're not going to step on her execution role if she's like, no, we're going to do it this way, and her 1% will probably win out over that. Is that true or no?
Whoever is the right person to listen to. Like Jocko Willing makes it very clear. If you want to be a good leader, you have to know when to follow. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that we talk about in the culture document. You better be prepared to lead, but you also better be prepared to follow. So I would follow her. Like I have no problem with that. There's no ego tied up. It's just somebody has to be the tiebreaker. When there's only two of you, it has to be agreed upon ahead of time who has the final say.
Interesting.
And that will force you to cross a line in your relationship where it's like, we're going to say it, we're going to write it down, there's going to be no uncertain terms. When we don't agree, and if it's area by area, we're going to write the areas down.
Right.
And then when something falls into a gray zone, who makes the decisions in the gray zone? Write it down.
So it's clear. Yeah.
Very clear.
Now, you had 15 years under your belt of building a successful marriage and partnership of trust and relationship and shared experience together. What if someone's in the first 2 years of their marriage? Would you say it's still good chance you'll have a great business experience together and not crush your marriage in those first?
If your relationship is high functioning, you'll just learn the lessons in a business context.
Right.
So a marriage is way more high stakes than business. All that's at stake in a business is money. What's at stake in a marriage is a shared life. And there's no way to fast track that. So you can break up and start over, but let's say you stay together for 10 years and then you break up. The only way to get to an 11-year relationship is to start back
over.
at 1.
Wow.
Whereas by then, that marriage would have been a 20-year marriage. So it is to me, with my value system, the thing that I protect most ferociously is my wife and my marriage. So that's just so easy. Now I play for keeps with the business. I'm not just like laissez-faire about it, like, hey, whatever. But it's like when they collide, you need to know what you care about. In rank order, which I find people have a very hard time doing.
What do you think we've heard a lot of the habits and mindset strategies you have, but what do you think are some things when you feel completely stuck, and I don't think you ever feel stuck, but in general for people, what are some habits they can take on along with meditation to help them get unstuck in that moment, to at least stepping forward in the actions they want towards their goal?
So a couple things. One, you really have to have beliefs and 2 rules. So
beliefs and rules and values, or
values will come into play, but just to keep it simple, we can talk to all 3 if you want. It is the full cocktail is beliefs, values, identity, rules, and habits. That's like the whole thing. You could sort of put routines in there, but they're so related to habits.
these are what you live by.
that is how I make sure I accomplish what I want to accomplish.
What are your beliefs?
I have 25 of them.
Wow.
These I've actually published. So while I don't have them memorized, if somebody wants to know what my beliefs are,
what's one or two like that?
I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. I can do anything I set my mind to without limitation. Then the next one is, I know that's a lie, but that's an empowering lie, and I do and believe that which moves me towards my goals.
Okay.
So, but there's 25 things like that. Human potential is nearly limitless.
Sure.
On and on. So it's all things to basically get you moving in the right direction. And the reason that I bring up rules is they need to have a rule that when they're indecisive, they immediately act. And I will just promise you, you're going to embarrass yourself because you'll be wholly unprepared. And there will be times where if you'd sat down and thought about it longer, you would have come to the right answer. But you didn't because you hit indecision. You have a rule in your life that indecision equals action. And I will just promise you, it isn't like 2 to 1, it's 1,000 to 1. So while there will be consequences, you will suffer consequences for living this way, but what you will get is so much bigger that it's like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
And so in my life, I don't allow indecision.
How many rules do you have?
I'm actually, I got a book deal and look at yay, 7-figure book deal, I turned it down. So I'm no longer writing it. And what I was gonna write in that book was gonna force me to come up to actually write my values down because I've never done it. So it's kind of like pornography. I know it when I see it. I'll get into a situation, I'll ask myself, what do I value? And because I'm totally unafraid of rank ordering things, I just rank order them. So for instance, the one that was really hard to do, my wife, my business, family, and friends. What order do they come in? Because you don't get 2 number 1s. My wife, my business, my friends and family.
Wow.
That's just being real.
Yeah.
So, but saying that out loud, that was not easy.
Doesn't mean you're not going to hang out with friends and family.
And it doesn't mean that I don't absolutely, I'm obsessed with my family. And there is almost nothing I wouldn't do for them. I wouldn't die for them and leave my wife alone. But in a moment of my mom falls in a river and I have to risk everything to save her, I would do it 100%.
Yeah.
So, that's easy, but that's just me being honest about ultimately the order in which those 3 things matter to me.
So why not take the 7-figure book deal? What's that to do with your rules?
Because I love the mindset stuff. I love it. And it's changed my life. And I love watching somebody's eyes light up when they get it for the first time. And so I created Impact Theory University, and it is the book, but in lecture form.
Yeah.
And so I've already created that stuff. Now I know that I would open up a much bigger market if I were to make the book so that those people could go, oh my God, this stuff is life-changing. And then I say, you like the book, you'll love Impact Theory University, sign up today. And it would quintuple our business overnight. I can pretty much guarantee it. When you say no to something that comes with a lot of zeros, you do so because of your value system. And what I value, when I think about Tom Bilyeu on his deathbed, if I may speak in the third person, I think of myself on my deathbed. I don't regret not writing the book, but I regret tremendously not telling stories. Because I think if I want to impact 100% of the world, 2% of them can be impacted with what we're doing right now. Where you say, think like this, act like this, it will make your life better. And 2% will do it. It's amazing. Now, I don't mean 2% of your audience. Your audience is the 2%. They have selected themselves out. They watch your show. So now some ungodly number of them are going to go out and do it because they belong to that very rare group. The 98%, though, they will not. And I became obsessed with this because working at Quest, I had 3,000 employees. 1,000 of them grew up in the inner cities. And many of them could process raw data faster than I could. They were smarter than me, but they had done nothing with their life. And they were not going to do anything with their life. Not that would be remembered or anything that even they valued.
Right.
And when I boiled down to why not, it came down to they didn't have a growth mindset. They didn't have the only belief that matters. So I thought, okay, well, how do I get it to them? So we created Quest University, and I would show up early, I would stay late, I would tell anybody anything they wanted to know about mindset, building a business, whatever. And 2% of them did it, and it was life-changing, and it's amazing. And I still get phone calls from people who are like, you changed my life. I mean, it's amazing, but it's only 2%. The other 98% are either apathetic or actively antagonistic to change. So how do you reach them?
Entertainment.
The punchline is you have to get to the limbic system, which you do through entertainment.
Movies.
So you tell them stories.
TV movies, yeah.
So
Star Wars.
storytelling, yep. Star Wars affected my life tremendously. The Matrix. It's how you sway culture. So the only way that I'm going to sway culture with my skill set, 'cause I'm not a musician, would be telling stories.
So the book, you weren't able to do the book because it wasn't.
It just took too much time. Yeah.
Got you.
And now I do admit I might at some point cross the bridge and go, hey, this is just taking Impact Theory University and putting into book form, get a
Transcribing in a certain
ghostwriter,
way,
and get him to do it. Like Ryan Holiday, I would have him do it. It's only sort of been recently that I've crossed that bridge because he was going to work with me on the book, but that was when I was like, no, I got to write every word.
Well, you have to.
But now I'm like, man, just send Ryan into ITU and say, spend 4 months watching all the content and just write it as a book. And that might be the punchline. I haven't thought beyond it.
And then you can
I'm just
impact
so
more
focused
people.
on the storytelling.
I hear you. That's powerful. What are other rules that you live by? So have you written those down or no?
No, the only ones I've written down are the beliefs. That was part of what got me interested in doing the book was I was like, oh, it's going to force me to write down my values and my rules. I'll just give you a few.
Yeah.
I'm out of bed in 10 minutes or less.
Wow.
If I've had more than 5 hours of sleep, I'm out of bed in 10 minutes or less. If I wake up after 3 hours sleep, I'll lay there for 2 hours trying to fall back.
I'm talking about during the weekday, but not the weekends.
No, even on the weekends. I don't have a hard rule about it, but rule of thumb, I'm still usually out of bed in 10 minutes or less. So I'm out of bed in 10 minutes or less. And most everything I'm going to say, just assume I mean Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
I'm out of bed in 10 minutes or less. If I'm awake, I'm either working or working out. Spoiler alert, I don't have sex during the week. That's just with rare exceptions. That's a no-go. I do hard things.
So at night, you don't relax?
No, I work until I go to bed.
Wow.
Even when I brush my teeth, I'm listening to a podcast. So legitimately.
You're efficient with all your time.
From the moment I wake up, Monday through Friday, it's very different on the weekends. Monday through Friday, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out.
Right.
And when I'm working out, I'm still listening to a podcast. So that one's actually double duty.
Wow.
Those are like some easy and fast ones that I live by every day. If I'm stressed, I meditate. I never blame other people. I always take on responsibility myself. I only do things that move me towards my goals. So I'm very careful about what my goal is. And another rule, my goals must always be exciting and honorable. And I'll define exciting is just like I'm amped up. It gives me more energy. I wake up excited to go do that thing. Honorable is it serves not only myself, but other people.
Okay. And what about identity? How does that play in everything?
That to me, as far as I can tell, there's only one smart way to go about identity, and that is to adopt the identity of the learner. So instead of valuing yourself for being something, it's all about becoming something.
Having something or
Correct.
what you've acquired
or being smart. In fact, this is how I got myself out of the death loop I was in my 20s around being smart, where I was making all these dumb decisions and I only wanted to be around people that were dumber than me. I was actually thinking about this. This wasn't like some subconscious program. I was like, oh man, that person is smart. Oh God, I don't want to be around them. And so there's this movie called Amadeus, and it's a true story, probably fictionalized, inspired by Amadeus Mozart's real life. And there's this real guy, his name is Salieri, and he laments in the movie, and I remember watching this at probably 17 years old and instantly going, this is my life. And he says, he laments to God and said, why did you make me just good enough to realize I'll never be as good as Mozart? Like, you could have made me better than Mozart, or you could have made me so dumb I can't tell.
But when you're like, it's so close, but you'll never get there.
He said it was too heartbreaking. And I sucked that into my soul, and for more than a decade, I was like, I am Salieri. And like you, with realizing, hey, calling myself a moron is not serving me, I finally had to say, thinking of myself as the person who's just good enough to recognize that other people are better, stop doing that. Yeah. And now start thinking relentlessly about acquiring new skills. That's it. Like, whatever. Be inspired by people that are better than you. Great. That's amazing. But don't sit there and lament, which is what I used to do, that you're not as good as them.
You started in 2010.
Yeah.
And how did this idea begin? And I've heard your story, but I want everyone to hear.
So Quest is really a company born out of misery, and I wish that wasn't true, but it really is. So my partners and I, we were successful serial entrepreneurs before this. We had a technology company called Awareness Tech. That company back in 2010 was named as the 42nd fastest growing company in North America by Deloitte and Touche. We were making money, we were winning awards, and we're standing in this beautiful conference room overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and we turned to each other and we're like, we're completely miserable. And it was a joke. I mean, we're literally living the cliche of money can't buy happiness, which is ironic because we're three guys that really believe in the power of money. And I really think the greatest problems that we face as a society are going to be solved by people with access to resources.
Yes.
And wealth really is the great facilitator. So here I am, a guy that believes that wealth is a great facilitator. It's going to solve these problems, and it's people that know how to generate money that also know how to execute. So I should be right now feeling my most powerful. I should be feeling like, hey, I'm on top of the world, and I'm not. And why not? And relentlessly self-assessing, which is something you talk about in your own book, relentlessly self-assessing, and what comes from that is truly powerful. So we were willing to say, okay, maybe everyone else is looking at us and saying, you guys have made it, but we don't feel that way. So what have we done wrong? And that's when we realized that there's two types of happiness. There's framework happiness and there's momentary happiness. Momentary happiness, bowl of ice cream, a trip to Bermuda. Those things are awesome, right?
Love them.
You can put somebody in an fMRI machine, give them a bowl of ice cream, and you can literally see it triggers the same dopamine cascade that you would get if they were doing drugs or doing anything pleasurable. But it ultimately, it goes away, right? And it's very transient. So that was sort of the part of money that we had tapped into, was this really transient, momentary, nice car, nice house kind of thing. But we hadn't gone beyond that to something mission-based. So we said, okay, if we tap into that framework happiness, which is being something, right? I go to the gym every day. I absolutely hate it. I used to be 230 pounds. I come from a morbidly obese family. So for me, the struggle that I had with weight forced me into the gym. It forced me to do something every day that I didn't want to do. But the things that I had to do to my mind in order to show up and do something that I don't want to do was incredibly powerful. And it became my sense of identity. I'm the guy that shows up in the gym and doesn't give up when other people give up, right? When other people want to stay in the warm bed, just as I do, I don't, and I go in. And as I told myself that over and over and over, I realized that values and identity drive behavior. So we wanted to take that kind of realization and apply it to business. What part of our identity, what part of our value system could we build a business around? And so we said, okay, first and foremost, we're going to bring value to other people. Like, that's just meaningful to me, right? I want to do something that's great for you. And I woke up every day thinking about my mom and my sister, right? They were morbidly obese, and I just didn't accept that I had to embrace that it was their choice to make whether to lose the weight and be healthy. And I thought, I understand human psychology. I understand if I can make food that they choose based on taste and it happens to be good for them, that I can get them in a positive direction. So for me, and we started the company for three very different reasons, but for me, that desire to save my mom and my sister and bring value to other people was what kicked it off.
That's what drove it for you. That's why you wanted to go into the
100%.
health business or the, nutritional business.
And honestly, so going back to the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, it's important to me to have the balls to look at the biggest problems we face as a society and say, that's my problem to solve, right? Obesity, metabolic disease, the slide towards ill health, however you want to categorize it, that's my problem. Like, I don't even wake up thinking that's my business partner's problem. That's my problem. Now, I'm working with my business partners because they're very sharp guys. But at the end of the day, like, I own that responsibility. And that's awesome to me, right? Like, having that, it isn't a weight that drags me down. It's like this goal to chase that's so big that I'm just stoked that there are people in the world that are prepared to dream that big. Like, I'm inspired by that in others, and hopefully can inspire other people with our dream.
Now, how did you change your mindset to do the hard things in the gym and get up when you didn't want to, when so many people don't do those things? What allowed you, or what tools did you use, or what practices in order to stay committed? Because a lot of people, they're just not committed over a long period of time. So how did you have that when other people didn't?
To answer that question, I have to take you back. So now, it was about 15 years ago, I had this sense that I was stuck in the matrix, that my life could be something more, but I didn't know how to make it more, right? And part of that was on a day when I wanted to stay in bed when it was warm, I did. And then time just feels like it's getting away from you, and you haven't really identified that the problem was that you didn't have something specific enough to get you out of bed, right? You weren't setting goals, you didn't have a vision, you weren't executing on your dreams. You might be dreaming like I was dreaming. I've always dreamed. For me, ambition was never the problem. I was the most ambitious, laziest person you're ever going to meet 15 years ago.
Right.
And it was realizing, wait, just because I'm lazy by nature doesn't mean I have to be lazy in actuality. Like I can actually get the discipline to develop real drive to acquire those skills. So when I met the guys that are now my partners, they put me into a scenario where there was a very real world consequence, both positive and negative, for living up to the acquisition of skills. So, and that environment, that gladiator pit that I ended up stepping into was the business world. And the great thing is when you're no longer an employee and it's your business and everything you have is on the line, and if the business fails, you lose your house, like that's real.
Yeah.
It's real to you in a way that it's not to an employee, right? Because now there's a real consequence that goes beyond, well, I have to look for another job, right? This goes into, I could lose everything if I can't solve this problem. Now that can scare you away and keep you wanting to be an employee where it's a little bit safer, or that can be wildly motivating to you. And that was interesting to me. So I wanted to be able to say, the harder I work, the better result I get. And they gave me the opportunity to plug into business where that became true. If I could solve these problems, if I could build a better product, if I could market it better, whatever, that better results came. And so there was like now a connection between how hard I work, the skills I acquire, and the reward I get. And that was all I needed. And then for me, being in that loop allowed me to do things like the gym.
Sure. So when did you discover your new values, and what are those values? Personal and then business, and then they intertwine?
Yeah. For me, they're totally connected 100%. And that's by choice, because for a long time they weren't connected. The way that I got the value system was truly looking at what works, right? And so I believe that I'm going to give away my answer to something you can ask me later, but I believe that the purpose in life, to be great, you have to acquire as many skills as you can that have utility, and then put that utility to the test. Because now you can see, did I actually get the skill that I thought I got? Did I get the result from that skill that I wanted? And you can judge both what skills you need to acquire and whether you have effectively required them. And business like that is the closest thing to, say, MMA fighting, right? MMA is, you want real-time feedback on whether you're learning and getting good at something. Let someone whose sole intent is to take your head off come in and test whether you can defend a choke or defend an armbar. It's so real and so visceral. There's, you can think of it, there's either it's pure metaphor or there's no metaphor, right? Like you were in that moment. So finding ways that business can be like that, for me, allowed me to create a set of values out of pure efficiency. So for me, the one thing I can't give you ambition. I can't make you want something, right? I can't want it for you. But once you want something, now you plug into something very real. And if you accept, I talk about, there's 25 bullet points is the Quest belief system. And that was me trying to give people the thing that they needed to escape the matrix. And in that is the belief that you can acquire skills, that the human mind, human potential is nearly limitless, right? So you start putting all this stuff together and it's like, okay, essentially everything falls on my shoulders. If I want to be great, it's all down to me and whether I execute on that or not. It's all down to my ability to say, this is the thing I want. This is the gap in skill set between who I am today and who I need to become in order to acquire that thing that I want. Like for me, I want to end metabolic disease globally, right? Yeah. So now I know what set of skills I need, right? I'm going to have to understand nutrition really well. I'm going to have to understand psychology really well in order to build this business. I'm going to have to understand just business in general to get the metrics right so that people can afford to buy these products, on and on and on. So you can identify the skill sets that you need, and then you get to test them, right? Because if I have learned the wrong skills or failed to learn a skill that I thought I had, the business doesn't grow, right? So you have this feedback loop. And really my value system was born out of that. I was so clear about what I wanted to accomplish that I could just test the skills that I was getting, and that sort of desire to accurately assess and acquire skills really is my value system.
Right. But I think you started Quest when you were 34, is that right?
When did we start Quest? Started Quest 5 years ago. I'm 39. Yes. 34. So well done. You know me better than I do.
So how long did it take you to, get clear on what you wanted? Did it take 34 years for you to get clear on what you wanted? And what was that process of actually figuring it out that you got clear?
Yeah, that's yeah, it's so tempting to mythologize everything and to tell you the concise story, which is maybe more useful, but is a little misleading. So the truth went something like this. We're miserable building this company that's a product we don't care about. Step one, what do we love? What do we care about? And what would we do and love doing even if we were failing? And that was the question that we asked ourselves. So, okay, the thing that we would do for 3 very different reasons is to make this food that people choose based on taste and it happens to be good for them. And I've already explained my reasons.
Yeah.
And so then as you know, we're starting to do the company, honestly, you're looking at what's working and what's not working, and you're relentlessly self-assessing. So it was just clear to me that people didn't think the way that we thought. So the 3 of my partners and I, Ron and Mike and myself, we think a very certain way, right? What we call the Quest way. And because they had developed that over the School of Hard Knocks and starting businesses and failing, they were able to bring me along much later in the process. But because I knew nothing about what they had learned up to that point and they weren't teaching me, they just drugged me into deep waters. I had to learn. And because the way my mind works, I was processing that into basically a list of, okay, here are the lessons I've learned. I was codifying it, right? Turning it into a map for success that I could hand to other people. And that ultimately became the 25 bullet points that are the Quest belief system. So as we're going, and I realize in my head, I've got these, what I didn't know at the time was 25 bullet points. But anyway, I've got this way of thinking, and I'm encountering these employees that don't think like that. And so accepting that that was really when I started to realize there's a gap between who people are and what they tell you they want to accomplish. Because in the beginning, I hired everyone.
Right.
Not because I'm super smart and thought, hey, I should. There was no one else, right? Like we had the smallest handful of people ever. And so I started doing the interviewing. As I was doing it, I start realizing, God, these guys tell me they want to do something amazing with their life. And if you just listen, like, wow, yeah, like I want to be on your team, dude. You're going to do amazing stuff. And then you realize they can't execute on that dream. So
why can't they?
They don't have the mindset yet. Like you could do an entire podcast series on how to get the mindset, but I'll just use Carol Dweck and her amazing book, Mindset.
I have it up there too on the shelf somewhere.
I'm sure. Such a good book. I see Simon Sinek up there, who is also very influential in us. And she says some people either believe they're as smart as they're ever going to be, and that's that. And so they're going to be ego protective, and they're going to try to thwart anything that makes them feel like they're not the smartest person or whatever. And then there's people with a growth mindset, and they realize I'm not the smartest person, and I'm certainly not as smart as I could be. So even if I am the smartest person that ever lived, I could get a little bit smarter. And so when they're confronted with contradictory information, they learn and they soak it up like a sponge.
Whereas other people are fixed mindset, right?
Correct.
They're fixed on like, no, this is the way and I'm right and that's wrong.
Yes. And I would say the world, everyone's on a spectrum, right? Even I, as much as I believe in it and work my ass off to be a growth mindset, I still have, let's call it 10% where I catch myself and I'm like, come on, dude, you know better than that. But so people that fall in the, let's say, sub 50% spectrum of the growth mindset, it's got to be 98%.
So what's the question you ask people now when you hire them to know if they have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset?
You ready?
Ready.
It's a weird thing. People actually, I don't let them do it anymore, but people actually used to ask if they could come in and sit in on the interviews because they were so weird. Not intentionally so. It was just to really get to a human being and who they are, it requires some weird stuff. So it goes like this. You walk in the door, there's a couple bad things happening. One, your anxiety levels are through the roof because you're in this weird setting. You're on my turf. You're sitting across from me. They've built me up. Oh, it's the president of the company. So people come in, and if you like
$1 billion brand,
put their fingers, put your fingers on their aorta, their arteries, and you're gonna, the heart's gonna be just racing out of control. So that's problem number one. The blood is literally leaving the prefrontal cortex, and they're just in a bad state.
They probably want to say anything to get the job.
And that takes us to the tyranny of being chosen. Well said, my friend. So people come in, they want to be picked, right?
Yes.
Being picked is awesome.
Accepted, acknowledged, chosen, yes.
Hell yeah. We all want that.
Yeah.
I teach people about the tyranny of being chosen, and I still have to check myself. Because it's just rad to be picked. Like, there's no two ways about it. So they walk in, they're nervous as hell. They've got the tyranny of being chosen. They want to win the job. They're not trying to assess the opportunity. They're not asking, is this job right for me? They're merely trying to be selected. So step one is, hey, welcome. I understand this is a very weird situation. So I want to bring your anxiety levels down as much as possible. You should be interviewing me. You should be kicking my tires and figuring out if I'm right for you. You're offering to give me 50% of your waking hours you better love this job. Like for some reason, this job better be moving you towards what you want for selfish reasons. So literally I opened the interview by saying that and then saying, I'm here to answer one question and one question only. When you're at your most selfish, are you good for me? And when I'm at my most selfish, am I good for you? And when you see an alignment of selfish desires, it really is beautiful. And I'll give you an example. My chief marketing officer, Nick Robinson, really, really sharp kid. He wants to build a media empire. He's not so worried about obesity. He struggled himself a little bit, so I think it resonated with him, but that wasn't a stated thing for him. He's got much bigger goals that he needs to build a media empire to do it. Now, I need a media empire in order to get this brand to mean something to people so it can bring the kind of value to their lives that I want it to bring. So here, I need somebody that has, when they're at their most selfish, they are learning about building a media empire. And he's thinking, I need somebody to fund this whole thing while I learn how to build a media empire and try that.
Because I can't pay it all myself. And
Exactly. So that's the alignment of selfish desires. So I'm trying to put people in that position where they're just trying to figure out if this is right for them, which hopefully lowers their anxiety levels and they're no longer worried about being picked. And then the sort of Trojan horse is I'm trying to get them outside of the interview answers because I'm not going to see the real them. I'm going to see the representative that they send. And when you were on Inside Quest, there was a moment on the show, and that's why I stopped. And I was like, the way this dude is looking at me, like I wish everybody could see, because you weren't there to give me pat answers. You were actually engaged.
I mean, I was almost crying at a couple points.
It
I was like, I wanted to be as real as possible and be engaged as possible. And I think you got to allow yourself to go anywhere and everywhere to get that truth.
For sure.
Yeah.
And and it was like a beautiful moment, right? It was so cool to share that and to have been able to create an environment like that where you could be so raw, so real. We had an audience. I mean, it was just so it created this whole vibe in the room. It's like one of those late night where it's dark and everybody can like let their guard down. If you can get that to happen in an interview, as uneasy as that is, then you get to the real person. So the technique I use for that is a confession. So I tell them, look, I'm going to try and get you to lower your guard and reveal yourself as quickly to me as possible so that I can judge you. And I'm going to reciprocate, and I'm going to lower my guard and reveal myself as quickly to you as possible so that you can figure out whether
this is what you want.
Yeah, exactly. If it's what you want.
Right.
So, and the confession is really simple. And what I'm about to say is actually true. I want to be a Jedi. First of all, I think in movies almost at all times. So The Matrix is the perfect example of my life.
And comics.
Yes, 100%. So I have no interest in wielding a lightsaber. That's not interesting to me. But the ability to influence, these are not the droids you're looking for. That is so meaningful to me. One, because it allows you to control your own mind, right? There's no more powerful mind control than control over one's own mind. And then because I believe that I use it not only for the good of that person, right? You should be at Quest for the exact number of days that it's the most selfish thing you can do. So I'm already thinking of you. And then we've got...
so you don't want them to stay forever if it's not selfish for them anymore.
No way.
You want them to get out as quickly as possible.
100%.
Interesting.
Dude, nothing terrifies me because I lost 8.5 years of my life,
being
right?
complacent, being safe, because it was comfortable, good money, good,
Exactly.
all those things, yeah.
And it really felt like I lost them. And I was like, time is the most precious commodity you have. And I mean, look, I reframed it because it doesn't do me any good to sit there and say I lost 8.5 years of my life. I learned a lot, but it was like, it was unnecessary the way that I went about. Like I learned every lesson the hardest way possible with the most pain and suffering possible. So I'm emotionally just keenly aware of what it means to service someone else's dream rather than your own. And I think, so Elon Musk inspires the life out of me. Like that guy just dreaming the way that he dreams is so incredible to me. I want to find the next Elon Musk, light them on fire and get them to believe that they can do that and they can execute on that level. And so the sort of background thing that's
even
running.
If they leave you.
100%.
So help you get to the next level while cultivating that within them. And then when they're ready to leave and it no longer serves them or you, then you want them to go out and be happy.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I've taught 2 people to be direct competitors, and they've gone on to launch nutrition companies.
Their own bars or...
Yep, 100%. And to me, that's if you take it out to the natural conclusion. So we make a promise to our employees, and I'm going to try to set you free. That I think of it in matrix terms, right? So I'm going to try and free you from the matrix. As someone helped free me from the matrix, I feel obligated to pay that back. And getting free of the matrix is shorthand for learning to think like an entrepreneur, right? You hit an obstacle, you don't stop, you find a way around it, you have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. I want to do that for people. And I want Quest to be that environment. Whether you meet me, spend time with me should be irrelevant. Just the Quest environment is going to provide that to you. So to that end, we tell people, I will teach you anything you want to know. I will give you the list of books in order that I think you should read to be able to take my job from me. I will at every corner encourage, or every turn encourage, if you have an entrepreneurial spark and you want to chase it, I will encourage that. I will never ask you to hide your passions from me. The only catch is your tuition. You have to be killer at your job.
Yeah.
Right? If you're killing it at your job, then
whatever you want.
Right, then your reward is Quest University. And our goal is to teach you all those things. And some of it's formalized, teaching people basic finance and things like that. Yeah. The whole show Inside Quest was meant to be us paying that forward and teaching people that mindset, bringing on people like yourself to come on and just show people how far you can take that mindset, you know, how you can go from injury to just massive accomplishment in a ridiculously short period of time. People are super inspired by that. So that kind of thing is our promise. But if you follow that out to its natural conclusion, ultimately someone comes and says, yeah, you'll teach me anything. You'll encourage me entrepreneurial, teach me how to build a nutrition company, and we'll do it.
Before we continue this video, make sure to subscribe below and turn on the notification bell right now so you don't miss out on these great videos every single day. I think you saw me. We were in Puerto Rico and you were sitting with your wife on the beach. You were on a flatbed chair, sitting back, just holding her, just sitting there looking into the ocean. No phone, no nothing. Maybe you were thinking about business in some way, but I was like, that's a really nice moment to watch you be calm and be still.
You're making me emotional, Lewis.
No, I'm serious though. This just came to me because I only see you in hustle, Walt Disneyland, out of the Matrix world, like let's crush it. But I was like, this is a really nice moment to just witness for a few seconds, you be present with your wife. And I'm sure you do this all the time on the weekends and stuff, but I was like, I want to see more of that as your friend.
Yeah.
And it can be 10 minutes a week. It doesn't have to be all the time, but this was a beautiful moment that I was like, that's what I think the world needs more in general in their own lives. I'm not saying that's what you're going to do because your personality is driven on other things, but I think it's in some ways healthy as well.
I don't even think you have to couch it. It is extraordinarily healthy. I think it's absolutely necessary in everybody's life, mine included. You know, part of what makes my marriage my single greatest joy is Lisa is good at what I am not good at. And so very early in the marriage, we said, okay, you're the canary in the coal mine, so I trust you. If you ever say we need to slow down, I will slow down instantly. You're more important to me than my business. So, and she is never abusive about it. So whenever she says something like, hey, let's go sit on the beach, I know, be there on the beach with her. I'm not like, hey, she's not looking at me. She's facing away on the ocean so I can think about whatever I want. No. It's like, that's where you smell the nape of her neck and you like drink in that neurochemistry of that bond.
How do you silence your thoughts over the obsessiveness of what you want to create in the moment of being present and connected with your partner?
One practice, so I meditate a lot out of necessity. And then two is understanding that when you reinforce a behavior, you really start to get something positive out of it. So when I'm there, like literally yesterday, there is a smell that my wife gets on her neck if she hasn't showered in a day. So she might skip a shower on the weekend, right? Oh my God, it is the most intoxicating scent ever. And scent is the only of the senses that goes directly to the part of the brain, the emotional center of the brain. Everything else goes into a relay station first. It's the only part that goes directly into the limbic parts of your brain. So that's why when you smell a barbecue or whatever, you're like, a kid again, and you're just in it. And when that smell is on my wife's neck, nothing else exists. It is just my wife.
So Lisa, just don't shower every other day. If you wanted to slow down or do something else.
I mean, that's one trigger. So what do you prize, right? What is your value system? So not all the business success in the world has brought me the level, the sustained amount, and the amplitude of joy that being in a relationship with my wife has brought me. So I have so much clarity about what my values are. It's just that they don't often conflict. But when they do, and my wife says, hey, slow down, or hey, I need time, or let's make sure we take X number of days off a year or whatever, I do it, no questions asked, even though I'm sort of hard charging the rest of the time. And so we do dumb stuff, like we shut down for Christmas. Our impact theory, my wife and I just talked about it this year, we will always and forever shut down for about 2 weeks at Christmas. And I don't expect anybody to work. I'm not going to be working. Like, go be with your family. Don't think about this stuff.
Does not working for you mean actually not doing any strategizing of the mind, not taking notes, or working on an outline for a potential book, or thinking, oh, this is a great character for my next movie?
I would do anything that's fun. So
but work is fun for you.
Yes. So there will be some fun things I'm sure that I will do.
Yeah.
But I'm more off the radar during Christmas than other times.
So you off the radar for Christmas in 2 weeks is more productive than most people's entire year on the radar.
Well, so and we can talk about that, because that I have gone way out of my way to make sure that I built, so Lisa and I had enough success I never needed to work again. So if you're going to work, then you might as well structure it for two things. The moment, like the in the moment joy. So doing this hard thing, I actually find intrinsically pleasurable. And I will say 40% of my work life is that. 60% is not. But 40% is I would do this whether I was building a business or not.
Getting paid or not for it.
Right.
You love it. Yeah.
That's huge. And then the other is impact. So if you can make impact doing something that you would be doing anyway, that's amazing. But really at Christmas time, it is we wear onesies. So I don't know how much you know about the neuroscience of like how humans biologically sync up. If you put 3 women in a house together, their periods will sync up based on hierarchy, by the way, of who's considered the sort of dominant female.
The matriarch, whatever, yeah.
It's crazy. But heart rates will sync up, breathing rates sync up. It's nuts. So my wife and I, when we shut everything down, even though yes, I'm still doing fun work, we dress the same. So we'll wear matching Christmas onesies. We listen to Christmas music together. We dance a lot. We watch the same movies. Like we just do all this stuff to like really sync up as much of our sort of minds and bodies as humanly possible. It's absolutely phenomenal. I love it so much.
Wow. How long have we been together now? 20 years?
20 years.
Was there a time where you ever thought you'd get divorced?
No. Deciding to propose, I threw my heart and soul into that. I was pros and conning it because Lisa used to get sick a lot.
You were analyzing the whole thing, listing
like,
it down.
Project out. Never going to sleep with another woman. She gets sick, and I am not a caretaker. I don't enjoy, like some people just get off on that. I do not.
I am not a caretaker.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be caretaking a lot. Am I going to be okay with that? Is she worth, all these sacrifices? And in the end, I was like, either I'm never getting married or I'm marrying this woman. And so once I flipped that switch in my mind, I never looked back. So getting married was not stressful. Deciding to get engaged, I really weighed that decision. And then, so I don't know how much we've talked about this. So I believe in ritual. I think it's missing from today's world. I think we're suffering huge consequences of the lack of ritual, especially coming of age rituals. Read this book called The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, and he said that he thought part of the reason that marriages were ending in divorce was you weren't a different person before your marriage and after your marriage. So I wanted to go through a ritualistic scarification.
Like killing your old self.
Correct.
Killing the ego, the identity, the man you once were, and becoming someone new.
100%.
So how did you do this ritual?
So I hate needles. I never wanted a tattoo. So because of the time, it was sort of the biggest fear that I had that wasn't life-threatening. I got a tattoo as a ritual. I designed it, all this. It was like my sort of credo to my wife. And it's in Greek. So her, not native language because she learned English first, but like she's fluent in Greek. And so there was just all this stuff tied up about, taking on this sort of new identity as a unit and all this stuff. Anyway, so I get the tattoo, and as I'm doing it, I wanted it to be painful. And as they're doing it, I'm saying, I am now a new man. I'm a different person. I'm stepping into this marriage. I will never look back. Divorce is not an option. We will be together forever. Now, admittedly, if she cheated on me, that would be the end. So it's not like, no matter what happens. But when I say we don't even say the D word, in our house it's called the D word, I tease her about everything in the world, but never about breaking up with her. Ever. I don't make a joke about it. Nothing, never. Because I don't even want that like taste in my mouth of that idea. And so I've told her, hey, you get horribly burned in an accident. You and I are staying together, homie, and I'm going to find a way to be attracted to the scars and all that. And it's just, that's commitment. And I needed her to know that because, look, one day she's going to be 85 and she's going to be a bag of wrinkles. And she might be beautiful, but odds are at 85, she's not going to be hot. And she needs to know, I'm still going to be with you. I'm going to be into you. I'm going to be more into you then because of what I value is a shared life. And it's the only thing you can't fast forward, right? So yes, there will come a point, there's going to be hotter chicks than you. You never have to worry about me chasing that because you and I are building a life together. And that's what I value.
So how old were you when you got this tattoo?
I would have been 26.
26, fresh out of USC film school. You were a professor.
Fresh, 4 years out.
You were you teaching there at this point?
I was teaching at the New York Film Academy. I've never taught at USC.
Yet.
Yet. Yes, Lewis. Yet.
I bet someone watching at USC will bring you in. I've
lectured at USC though, believe it or not, but I have not taught.
I'm sure you could be a teacher there if you wanted to, but may not be the best use of your time. So 26 when you got this tattoo, you read this book, Power of Myth, before that. And thought to yourself, I need a ritual in order to anchor myself into this marriage, into this commitment, into this new identity, and not have a way out. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, the last part of that is not how I thought of it. I didn't think of it as not having a way out. I thought of it as being completely committed to always making sure that the most joyful thing in my life is this marriage. And so I'll never joke about ball and chain or anything like that. It's like, the most joyful thing in my life is my marriage. And therefore, I will treat it with the reverence it deserves. I will never neglect it, betray it, nothing. And so it's...
Was there a phase where you were like, man, this is really tough, though?
Marriage is a series of compromises. And so in any moment where you're arguing, it's like, oh my God, like, this is not how I want to be spending my Saturday, Lewis.
Right.
But never did I think anything other than this is me not being good at something yet. And so I need to figure out, like, where was my failure of communication? Are my emotions running away with me? Like, what am I failing at right now? And thankfully, that's an idea that I learned very early in my marriage, that, like, if I look at why I was wrong, why I created this argument, what I could do differently, then I don't have to spend an entire Saturday in a fight. I can get us out of it. And if she's doing the same thing, going, what have I done wrong here? How could I get us out of this? Now you've got two people that are like, ooh, we'll actually say, oh, this is that point of no return. We've got one last sort of stop here before we're just angry enough that we just have to part ways for a couple of hours and it's going to be a waste. So let's take a second. Let's dial it down, remind each other we love. We actually say this stuff. And that has been ridiculous. If you were watching from the outside, our arguments, I'm sure, look ridiculous because we're externalizing our internal narrative. Like, hey, when you said that, it made me feel like this, and I know I shouldn't. I know that's not what you mean, but it's really triggering an insecurity. So we say all of that stuff, and that helps us, like, keep everything calm and, like, remind us that we want to connect and, that we love each other. That's a big thing in a fight. Does this person love me?
Yes. When you know you're right in an argument, but the other person is unwilling to, for whatever reason, they're irrational, they're reactive, they're insecure, they're hurt, whatever. But you know in your heart, I am right with this thing, this situation, and you can't get your partner to see your point of view. But you know it's going to cause more and more stress and chaos if you continue to be right. What is the solution so that you can get back to love and peace? And are you okay with knowing you're right, but having to say, you know what, well, I'm just going to let this go, even though I know this is the truth, facts in the world right now?
No, probably not. Like, we would need to come to a resolution because that's one of those things that really could fester. If I'm right about something immaterial, then I might just be like, what exactly am I arguing about? A lot of times in those moments, it's just space. It's just like, let's just take a minute. Because a lot of times, let's say she's right. And if she gives me an hour, I might just be like, yeah, actually, either it doesn't matter or she actually is right about this. And you can sort of, once you've de-escalated and you get back to the easiest way to explain it is you're at a place where you want them to win. Where the idea of them being right is like you get joyful, even though it does mean that you were wrong. It's like you're back to a place where I would literally die for this woman. And if I would literally die for this woman, I can't be wrong for this woman. Like that seems like a much lower bar.
Sure.
So you get back to that place of like, I actually want her to win. Not necessarily I want her to win all the arguments, of just like, but her having this win is now, I can frame it as a joyful thing. And that helps a lot. And I'll say that's probably 90% of the issues just go away when you both step back. You get time to recalibrate your neurochemistry, and you can approach it just from like, oh yeah, I love you more than anything in this world, and I can actually feel that now. And so I want to concede anything that's true. And now we get to a point where we can move forward. Now, if it's like, this just really, like both of us at different times, I will say this is maybe a particular strength of mine, is I'll say, no, we have friction here. And it would be very easy to pretend that we don't. It will only get worse. It's going to manifest in something bad.
Give me an example. Maybe not something specific in your relationship where you, but something
this
like,
has become a famous one for us, where we were out one night for dinner, and she was upset that I hadn't said that her new shirt looked good, and she'd gone to all this effort. This is a time where I was working a lot. So we didn't get.
This is impact theory or pre?
This is early Quest.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a lot of time together when we weren't working. I mean, making protein bars together is time together, but it's not exactly quality time.
It's not hanging on the beach.
Yeah. So we were at dinner, and she put on this new shirt, and she loved it and thought she looked amazing, and I didn't say anything. And so we're at dinner. That's going to be a key part of this equation in a minute. So we're at dinner, and she says, what do you think of my top? And I'm like, it's all right. And she was traumatized, and just very upset. We have very little time to come out, and you're not sort of appreciating me, and why didn't you tell me before we came out? And so what I ended up saying was, look, it would have been very easy for me to just gush and say you looked amazing. And the reason that I'm not is because if I tell you the truth now when it's hard, then when you're 85 and I say you're beautiful to me, I'm being serious. Because it was hard 1,000 times before this, and I said what was true. Why all of a sudden would I not say what's true? And so I need you to be able to cash that check, that I have been honest in 10,000 hard moments leading up to this one time where I need you to know. I know it's counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, I think you made the right business call or whatever. And no, I'm not pandering to you. No, I'm not telling you what, you need to hear. I think you need to hear or whatever. Yeah. Like, this just really is true. Like, you really nailed that. And I know it was hard, and maybe you're embarrassed, but I really think you did the right thing, and I'm very impressed. And she'll be able to say, whoa, okay, like that really is real. That's one example. Another example was what we call the famous tea argument. The biggest fight my wife and I have ever been in was over a cup of tea. And it all goes to insecurities. So it's very early in our marriage. And we were dirt poor. I never took time off work, but she had said, we need to take time off. We need to go away for the weekend. Now, go away for the weekend for us is one night in a hotel. That's all we could afford. And so I thought, hey, we're going to pay for a night in the hotel. I want to be there the second they will let us check in. Right. And I'm going to stay like extra late checkout. Like, I want to maximize right, for the money. For her, it was, well, we get quality time together and you're taking a breath. And for her to finally slow down and to have that moment in the morning where we're about to drive off to this beautiful hotel and it's going to be so amazing. And I'm sitting there watching her have this cup of tea. Like, I cannot believe that she's wasting this. I've taken time off work. I'm paying for a hotel, and she wants to sit and you can have a cup of tea anytime. What the hell is going on? And so I start reacting like that. Like, what are you doing? This is insanity. Come on, let's go. Yeah. And so now we're literally screaming at each other over this cup of tea. And we're halfway to Santa Barbara, and I turn around, and we're driving back. And something snaps in my mind. And I'm
you turn around because you're still arguing.
I'm so angry. I'm like, this is a waste. I'm not even going to keep going.
The weekend's over.
Yeah. Let's go home. This is stupid. And so when I actually take the exit ramp and actually get back on, and I am going back home, we are actually going back home, I was like, you're being a child.
To yourself.
To myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're being a child, and you're now ruining this.
Is this internally or out?
Internally.
Okay.
And so finally I said, this argument isn't about the tea. What are we actually arguing about? And so I broke down what the cup of tea meant and all the things that I just said to you about I never take time off. I'm so freaked out about taking time off from work because I'm poor. I have made you poor. You are clipping coupons. I'm panicking about spending money on, whatever, $140 hotel. I'm freaking out. The only way that I can sort of justify the time and the money is if we make use of every second. And I feel like you're being disrespectful to my sacrifice.
To your money, your time.
Of doing all of this. And she was like, I just want to be with you. I just want to spend time with you. And a way for me to soak in the moment is to slow down and have this cup of tea. And I was like, whoa. Like, I have the chills now. This was like 17 years ago. And I remember thinking, let's never do this again. Let's always ask ourselves, or say we're arguing about the tea. And so now to this day, 17 years later, we'll say we're arguing about the tea. What's really going on? And then when you really, it's always insecurity. You get into like, oh, I'm insecure about something. You've poked on some insecurity that I have. What is it? It's this. And because we have this whole thing about never weaponize your partner's insecurities ever under any circumstance, even though you could win an argument by hitting them with that insecurity, you can't do it not even once. And so when you find it and you say it, and then we celebrate the other person for acknowledging that and saying that, yes, cool, okay, now I understand where you're coming from. Here's why, now that you mention it, like this is what was really bothering me, and you can get to that. Now look, now we're very fast with navigating through the emotional hijack, but your emotions still hijack you. It's not like I don't get mad or she doesn't get mad or we don't sort of miss each other or like, we're miscommunicating. But because we have names for this stuff and we have best practices and, tools, you find ways to center yourself.
It's like waking up to the truth of the life you have right in front of you, and how can you connect better to it and deeper to it, and isn't waiting until the new job, the guy, the kids, because you're going to get those things and still feel the same ache.